Sometimes, betrayal doesn't arrive with a scream. It comes in silence, from the person who once vowed to protect you. The boardroom falls silent as Ethan Brooks rises from his leather chair, his voice cold and emotionless. "Lena Brooks, you're fired, effective immediately." Lena's hand instinctively moves to her stomach. "Ethan, I'm pregnant." He laughs, the sound echoing off the glass walls. "Convenient timing. Security will escort you out." Their eyes lock, husband and wife, as if they were strangers. "Before we continue the story, let us know where you're watching from." Lena Brooks stood perfectly still as the board members avoided her gaze. Only Sienna Hayes, sitting unnervingly close to Ethan's chair, met her eyes with a satisfied smile. The conference room felt colder than usual, despite the summer heat pressing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. "If you'll direct your attention to the presentation," Sienna said, rising gracefully and clicking her remote. The screen behind her illuminated with financial projections. "As you can see, the operations department has been underperforming for the past 3 quarters. Lena frowned. "Those aren't the numbers I submitted last week." "These are the actual numbers," Sienna emphasized, glancing at Ethan, who nodded in support. "Not the ones you've been doctoring to cover your declining performance." The accusation hung in the air. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "That's absurd," Lena said, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "I can show you the original reports right now." "We've already checked your laptop," Ethan interjected. "It found evidence that you've been manipulating data for months." He slid a folder across the polished table. "The evidence is quite clear." Lena didn't touch the folder. She knew whatever it contained was fabricated. Instead, she looked directly at Caleb Mitchell, their largest investor, who had always respected her business acumen. "Caleb, you know this isn't true." Caleb looked down, unwilling to meet her eyes. He'd known the Brookses for years, had been at their wedding. His silence spoke volumes. "The board has already voted," Ethan continued, his voice detached as if addressing a stranger rather than his wife of 8 years. "Your performance has been declining, and frankly, you've been dead weight for years. The company can no longer carry you." The words struck like physical blows. Dead weight. After everything she'd built, everything. She'd created it. Lena's mind flashed to late nights coding while Ethan worked the party circuit, to the initial algorithm she developed in their garage apartment, before they even had funding. "We need to discuss this privately," Lena said, her voice low. "There are things the board doesn't know." "There's nothing to discuss," he cut her off. "Sienna has been essentially doing your job for months. The transition will be seamless." Sienna straightened, unable to hide her triumph. "The board has already approved my appointment as the new chief operating officer." Lena felt the room tilt slightly. This wasn't just a firing, it was a coup. And it had been planned, meticulously. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I'm pregnant." A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps even fear, crossed Ethan's face before dissolving into a dismissive laugh. "Convenient timing," he said, eyebrow raised. "But it doesn't change anything. The decision is final." Sienna stepped forward, hand extended. "Your company access cards and laptop, please. Company policy for terminated executives." Lena noted how Sienna emphasized terminated as if savoring the word. Slowly, she removed her access card from around her neck and unplugged her laptop as she handed them over. Sienna leaned in close. "He never loved you," she whispered, her perfume overwhelming. "You were just useful, until you weren't." The boardroom door opened and 2 security guards entered, men Lena knew by name, Carlos and Jim. They'd wished her happy birthday just last month. Now, they wouldn't meet her eyes. "Please escort Ms. Brooks out of the building," Ethan instructed, already turning back to the board. "Now as for our next agenda item." Lena allowed herself to be guided toward the elevator, her mind running calculations faster than ever before. As the doors closed, she caught a final glimpse of the boardroom. Ethan already laughing at something Sienna had said, the board members relaxing now that the unpleasantness was over. Carlos shifted uncomfortably beside her. "I'm sorry, Miss Brooks. We're just doing our job." "I understand, Carlos," she said softly. "How's Maria's pregnancy going?" His eyes widened in surprise that she remembered his wife's condition. "Good, thank you. We find out if it's a boy or girl next week." Lena nodded, maintaining her composure as they crossed the lobby. Employees stared as security escorted their COO through the atrium. Some looked confused. Others quickly averted their eyes. Lena kept her head high. But behind her calm expression, her pulse pounded. Each step away from everything she had built felt like being stripped layer by layer. Every footstep echoed like betrayal. Her pace measured. Outside, the summer heat hit her like a wall. Carlos and Jim accompanied her to her car, standing awkwardly as she unlocked it. "Again, we're really sorry, Ms. Brooks," Jim said. Lena smiled gently. "It's not your fault. Take care of yourselves." Her voice was steady, but her chest burned with the restraint it took not to break in front of them. They were just doing their jobs, kind men trapped in a cruel order. They watched as she settled into the driver's seat, closing the door with a decisive click. Only when they turned to walk back toward the building did Lena's composure falter. Her vision blurred for a second, but she blinked it away. Not now. Not here. Her hands trembled as she reached for her personal phone. Not the company one she'd surrendered. She scrolled to a contact simply labeled contingency and pressed call. A woman's voice answered immediately. "Lena? Has it happened?" Lena watched the Stratos Edge Capital logo gleaming in the sunlight. The company she had built from code and dreams now turned against her. "It's time," she said, her voice finding new strength. "They've made their move." 3 hours later, Lena sat in her personal home office, a space Ethan rarely entered. While their main house stood in Gold Coast, a sprawling modern showcase for entertaining clients and investors, Lena had maintained this small apartment near downtown. Officially, it was an investment property, but she'd kept it as her private workspace for years. Here, surrounded by her original coding notebooks and personal servers, Lena reviewed files on her personal laptop, the one Ethan knew nothing about. On the screen, the original algorithm that had made Stratos Edge a billion-dollar company scrolled by, elegant in its complexity. Each line of code felt like a battle scar she had earned, the product of long nights, missed anniversaries, silent tears. This wasn't just code. It was proof. 5 years ago, when Lena had developed the predictive algorithm that revolutionized supply chain management, Ethan had been focused on raising their first serious round of funding. While he wined and dined potential investors, Lena had worked through nights perfecting the code. When it was ready, Ethan had insisted on presenting it himself. "Investors respond to confidence, Lena," he'd said. "You get nervous in presentations. Let me handle this part. We're a team, remember?" She'd agreed, believing in their partnership. She hadn't realized then that we only mattered when it served him. That was her first mistake. A notification pinged on her screen, a news alert announcing an impromptu press conference at Stratos Edge, scheduled for tomorrow morning. They weren't wasting any time. Lena opened her personal safe, hidden behind a bookshelf, and extracted a thick folder labeled Origin. Inside were notarized records of her work, dated patent registrations, and correspondence with the patent office. All filed under her maiden name, Lena Tran, a safeguard she'd implemented when the first doubts about Ethan had surfaced 2 years ago. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Sienna. "Ethan wants the house too. We expect you out by Friday." Lena ignored it. Instead, she picked up her phone to call Caleb Mitchell directly. Despite his silence in the boardroom, Caleb was a shrewd businessman who respected evidence above all else. "Caleb Mitchell," he answered, his voice cautious. "We need to meet," Lena said without preamble. "Not about my termination, about something much bigger. Something that affects your $100 million investment." Silence stretched for a moment before Caleb responded. "The Ashcroft Room. Private dining. 1 hour." Lena ended the call and stood, catching her reflection in the window. She looked unchanged on the outside, the same dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, the same determined set to her jaw, but something fundamental had shifted inside her. She placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. "They have no idea what they've done," she whispered to herself and her unborn child. The Ashcroft Room offered the discretion that Chicago's financial elite required. Caleb Mitchell was already seated when Lena arrived, a glass of scotch sitting untouched before him. At 62, Caleb had the weathered look of someone who'd built and lost fortunes before finding lasting success. He'd been the first major investor to back Stratos Edge. "You're taking this surprisingly well," he observed as Lena sat down, declining the waiter's offer of wine with a subtle hand over her stomach, a gesture Caleb didn't miss. "I've been prepared for something like this for 18 months, Lena replied once they were alone. "Ever since Sienna arrived and Ethan started changing." Caleb leaned forward. "What exactly am I here to see?" Ethan presented compelling evidence. "Fabricated evidence," she interrupted, opening her leather portfolio. "But that's not why I called you here." She slid across the first document, her original patent filing for the algorithm that formed Stratos Edge's foundation. "This was filed 3 months before Stratos Edge was even incorporated," she explained, "under my maiden name, Lena Tran." Caleb studied the document, his expression unchanging, though his eyes sharpened with interest. "Keep going," he said. Lena placed a second document beside it, the licensing agreement she'd created allowing Stratos Edge to use her intellectual property. An agreement Ethan had signed but clearly forgotten about, or assumed was meaningless. "I created Stratos Edge's core technology before we were married," Lena continued. "Ethan was focused on the business plan and fundraising, things he excels at. I handled the technology. We agreed. It was a partnership." Caleb examined the licensing agreement carefully. "Why didn't you ever speak up? You let him take all the credit, in every investor presentation, every media interview." Lena's eyes reflected a mixture of regret and resolution. "I believed in our partnership more than my ego. That was my mistake." She laid out more documents, email chains showing her explaining the technology to Ethan, early test results, and her notebooks with the original code concepts. "But there's more," she continued, producing financial records. "These show discrepancies between the actual company performance and what's been reported to the board." Caleb's expression darkened as he reviewed the numbers. "These suggest systematic manipulation of financial reports." Lena finished for him. "Started around the time Ethan brought Sienna into the company. It's performing significantly worse than you've been told." Caleb set down the documents, his face grim. "The board needs to see this. Immediately." Lena's phone buzzed with a news alert. She turned the screen for Caleb to see. "Stratos Edge Capital announces emergency press conference. CEO Ethan Brooks to address company restructuring." "He's moving faster than I anticipated," Lena said. Caleb was already reaching for his phone. "I can stall the press conference." "No," Lena said firmly. "Let him talk. Let them both talk." Her calm certainty gave Caleb pause. "What are you planning?" Lena gathered her documents carefully. "Justice, Caleb. Nothing more. Nothing less." As they prepared to leave, Caleb asked the question that had clearly been bothering him since the boardroom. "The pregnancy. Is it real?" Lena met his gaze steadily. "Yes. 12 weeks. Ethan and I had been trying for years." She paused. He was more interested in the heir to his company than in being a father. Outside, Caleb's driver held the door for them. Before Lena could step toward her own car, Caleb stopped her. "What do you need from me right now?" Lena considered the question carefully. "Just be ready to move quickly tomorrow, and perhaps warn your fellow board members to have their lawyers present for the press conference." As Lena drove away, she allowed herself the first real smile since the boardroom. Phase 1 was complete, the groundwork laid. Tomorrow would bring the next stage of her carefully orchestrated response to betrayal. Dawn found Lena preparing methodically in her apartment. She'd slept surprisingly well. The clarity of purpose had washed away the emotional turmoil of the previous day. On her television, financial news anchors speculated about the sudden press conference at Stratos Edge Capital. "Sources suggest major leadership changes at tech darling Stratos Edge," the anchor reported. The company's stock is up 2% in pre-market trading on rumors that co-founder and COO Lena Brooks may be stepping down. Lena allowed herself a small, knowing smile. The stock would not be up for long. Her phone rang. Eliza Winters, her personal attorney and old college roommate. "I've reviewed everything," Eliza said without preamble. "Your documentation is impeccable. The Patent Office has confirmed your filings predate Stratos Edge's incorporation. The emergency injunctions are ready to file, with one word from you." "Thank you," Lena replied. "Is Judge Hamilton available today?" "He's on standby. He owes me after that charity auction fiasco last year." Lena nodded to herself. "Wait for my signal. I want to see what story they tell first." After ending the call, Lena dressed with particular care, choosing a structured navy dress that projected authority without drawing attention to her still-hidden pregnancy. As she fastened her grandmother's pearl earrings, she thought of the family legacy. They represented generations of strong women who had faced adversity with dignity. At precisely 9 a.m., Lena settled onto her couch, laptop open beside her, and turned up the volume on the television. The Stratos Edge logo filled the screen, as cameras showed the company's press room. The empty podium waited. Backdrop artfully arranged to highlight the company's achievements, many of which were Lena's work. Ethan strode out confidently, Sienna 2 steps behind him. Lena noted that Sienna had chosen a dress remarkably similar to ones she often wore for press appearances, a subtle but clear message about replacement. "Good morning," Ethan began, his practiced charm on full display. "Thank you for joining us on short notice, as Stratos Edge Capital continues its trajectory of growth and innovation. We occasionally need to make difficult leadership decisions to ensure our continued success." Lena opened her laptop, fingers poised over the keyboard. "It is with regret that I announce the departure of Lena Brooks from her position as Chief Operating Officer," Ethan continued, his expression a masterful blend of professional concern and personal regret. "Lena has been instrumental in Stratos Edge's early development, but as companies evolve, leadership needs change." Lena typed a single word to Eliza. "Now." On screen, Ethan continued his carefully constructed narrative. "While we had hoped to manage this transition smoothly, recent events have necessitated immediate action. Lena has been experiencing personal difficulties that have affected her professional judgment." Sienna stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on Ethan's arm, a gesture calculated to appear compassionate while suggesting intimacy. "It's with great sadness that we've had to address increasingly erratic behavior," Ethan added, his voice lowered as if sharing a difficult confidence. "We've tried to handle this privately, but Lena's condition has made that impossible." Lena's eyes narrowed, the unstable woman narrative, exactly as she'd predicted. "I'm pleased to announce that Sienna Hayes will be stepping into the role of Chief Operating Officer," Ethan continued, turning to smile at Sienna. "Her exceptional work as my executive assistant has demonstrated her readiness for this responsibility." Sienna stepped to the microphone. "I'm honored by the trust placed in me, and while these circumstances are unfortunate, I'm committed to building on the foundation Lena helped establish." Lena smiled coldly at the calculated humility. On her laptop screen, a message from Eliza appeared. "Injunctions filed. Judge Hamilton signing now." On television, a reporter stood. "Mr. Brooks, can you elaborate on Ms. Brooks' condition and erratic behavior?" Ethan adopted a pained expression. "Out of respect for Lena, I'd prefer not to detail the specific incidents. This is a personal matter as well as professional." He was interrupted by the buzz of phones throughout the press room, journalists receiving a breaking news alert simultaneously. A reporter in the front row looked up from her phone, eyes wide. "Mr. Brooks, we're receiving reports that emergency injunctions have just been filed, prohibiting Stratos Edge Capital from using proprietary algorithms and software. The filings claim these technologies are actually owned by Lena Tran, Ms. Brooks' maiden name, and were only licensed to Stratos Edge. Can you comment?" The camera caught Ethan's momentary freeze, the flicker of panic before he recovered. "I'm not aware of any such filings," he replied. "This sounds like unfortunate confusion." Another reporter cut in. "The injunctions include documentation showing Ms. Tran patented the core technology before Stratos Edge was incorporated. Does this mean Stratos Edge has no legal right to its primary products?" The press room erupted with questions. Sienna leaned toward Ethan, whispering urgently. His composure visibly cracked as he glanced down at his own phone, now flooding with alerts. "We'll need to review these claims before commenting further," he managed, voice tight. "This press conference is concluded. Thank you." As Ethan and Sienna retreated from the podium amid shouted questions, Lena calmly sipped her tea, watching the chaos unfold, exactly as she had anticipated. Her phone rang. "Caleb Mitchell." "The board is in emergency session," he said without greeting. "Ethan claims this is all fabricated revenge. His lawyer is already calling it the desperate actions of a disturbed woman." "As expected," Lena replied calmly. "What exactly is your endgame here, Lena?" She considered the question. Truth, Caleb. Simply truth. Every lie they tell will be another nail in their coffin. After ending the call, Lena opened another file on her laptop. Contingency plans developed over months of quiet preparation. Phase 2 had begun precisely on schedule. By noon, Stratos Edge's stock had dropped 18% as market uncertainty about the company's right to its own technology triggered a sell-off. Lena watched the financial channels from her kitchen as she prepared a light lunch, mindful of her pregnancy's nutrition needs. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. Board members, company executives, even old college friends now working in tech journalism. She answered none of them. Instead, she sent the same text response to all. I will address all questions tomorrow. The waiting was strategic. Let Ethan and Sienna scramble. Let them make more mistakes. A knock at her door broke her concentration. Lena approached cautiously, checking the security camera on her phone. To her surprise, Sienna Hayes stood in the hallway, alone and looking considerably less composed than she had at the press conference. Lena opened the door but blocked the entrance. This is unexpected. Sienna's perfect makeup couldn't hide her agitation. Can I come in? I need to talk to you. Away from Ethan, away from everyone. Why would I trust anything you have to say? Because I have information you need. Sienna's voice dropped, and because he's betrayed us both. Against her better judgment, Lena stepped aside, allowing Sienna into the apartment, but kept her in the small entry hall. 5 minutes, Lena said coldly. Lena, she said coldly. Sienna glanced around, noting the space Ethan knew nothing about. He doesn't know about this place, does he? Your 5 minutes are ticking away. Sienna straightened. Her designer blouse was crisp, but her eyes carried something different this time. Less calculation, more exhaustion. I want to help you. Lena's laugh was short and disbelieving. You want to help me? She said sharply. After standing next to him while I was dragged out of my own company? After whispering in my ear that he never loved me, with a smile on your face? Try again. I was wrong, Sienna said abruptly, about everything I thought. She paused, seeming to gather herself. I thought Ethan and I had something real, that once you were gone I would get everything you had, the title, the recognition, maybe even him. Her voice cracked slightly, and for the first time it wasn't rehearsed. It was human. And now Sienna opened her handbag, extracting a flash drive. Last night, after the board meeting, I overheard Ethan on the phone with Lawrence Chen from Global Tech. Lena's eyes narrowed. Global Tech had been trying to acquire Stratos Edge for years. He's planning to sell the company, Sienna continued. Everything he told the board about long-term vision, stabilizing leadership, was a lie. The promotion to COO was temporary, just to stabilize things until the sale goes through. He was laughing about it, saying neither of us would be necessary once he cashed out. Lena maintained her skeptical expression. You expect me to believe this sudden change of heart? I recorded the conversation, Sienna said, holding up the flash drive, along with other things. You should hear it. Her hand trembled just slightly as she held it out. I wanted your position, not your humiliation. He went too far. Lena made no move to take the drive. Why would you turn on him now? Because I finally realized I'm just another tool to him. Just like you were, Sienna's polished veneer cracked slightly. All this time I thought I was winning. Turns out I was just next. And because what he said about your pregnancy was unforgivable. Lena considered Sienna carefully. This could be an elaborate trap, Ethan sending Sienna to gather information or plant false evidence. But the fear in Sienna's eyes seemed genuine. If this is some kind of setup. It's not, Sienna interrupted. Test the files. Verify them however you need to. I can get more evidence if you need it. There was something desperate, not just guilty, but scared. Lena finally took the flash drive, though she had no intention of inserting it into any of her computers without a thorough security scan. If what you're saying is true, Lena said carefully, what exactly are you hoping for here? Sienna's answer came without hesitation. Protection. When this all comes crashing down, I don't want to be collateral damage. I have texts and emails showing Ethan instructed me to alter financial reports. I was following orders, not exactly an innocent bystander. No, Sienna admitted, but not the mastermind. Either I can help you bring him down completely. Lena studied the woman who had sought to replace her, recognizing the calculation behind the apparent contrition. Sienna was nothing if not a survivor. Here are my terms, Lena said finally. You continue working with Ethan, exactly as before. You report everything to me, every conversation, every plan, every reaction to today's events. You provide any evidence I request. In exchange, when this is over, you walk away unscathed, provided your information proves valuable and truthful. Sienna nodded quickly. I can do that. One more thing, Lena added, her voice hardening. If I discover you're playing both sides, the consequences will make today's stock drop look like a minor correction. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Sienna replied. After Sienna left, Lena weighed the flash drive in her palm, considering the unexpected development, a potential ally inside the enemy camp. Useful, but dangerous, she would proceed with caution. Her phone rang again, her doctor's office. This call she answered. Mrs. Brooks, Dr. Liu here. Just calling to confirm your blood work looks excellent, and your pregnancy is progressing beautifully. Would you like to know the gender? It was detectable in your latest tests. Lena placed a hand protectively over her stomach, reminded of what was truly at stake beyond corporate power plays. Yes, she said softly. I would like to know. As the doctor shared the news, Lena smiled, genuinely, for the first time that day. She had even more motivation now to ensure that justice prevailed. Not just for herself, but for the daughter she now knew she carried. Now, she whispered. After ending the call, the real game begins. Lena had underestimated Ethan's surveillance measures. Less than 3 hours after Sienna left her apartment, Lena's secure phone, the one only 5 people had the number for, rang. Ethan's distinctive tone. Sending my mistress to spy for you? Ethan's voice was eerily calm. I expected better strategy from you, Lena. Lena felt a chill, but kept her voice steady. Hello, Ethan. I see Sienna's loyalty was shorter-lived than anticipated. Sienna has been many things, but never disloyal. Not to me, his tone held smug satisfaction. The flash drive she gave you, loaded with tracking software, the moment you connected it to any device, we'd have access to everything. Rather amateurish of you to trust her. Lena smiled to herself. She hadn't connected the drive to anything. Instead, she'd handed it off to a cybersecurity specialist who worked in a completely isolated testing environment. Interesting assumption, she replied. But then, you've always underestimated me. A slight pause suggested her response wasn't what he expected. The injunctions were a cute move. Ethan continued, his voice hardening. But my lawyers are already filing countersuits. You signed company agreements assigning all intellectual property to Stratos Edge. After the patents were already filed, in my maiden name, Lena countered. And after the licensing agreement you signed. Did you ever actually read the documents I gave you, Ethan? Or were you too busy charming investors and sleeping with your assistant? His sharp intake of breath indicated she'd struck a nerve. You've made a serious miscalculation, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. I've frozen all the accounts you could access. Your company health insurance has been terminated. The locks at our house have been changed. How long can you fight a legal battle against a billion-dollar company with no income? Lena had anticipated these moves. I'm touched by your concern for my financial well-being, truly. This isn't a game, Lena. You're pregnant, supposedly. Is this really how you want to start parenthood, homeless and blacklisted from every tech company in Chicago? The threat might have worked months ago, but Lena had moved far beyond such concerns. I'm curious, she said, ignoring his question. When exactly did you decide I was disposable? Was it when Sienna arrived or earlier? You disposed of yourself, Ethan replied coldly. When you stopped being an asset and became a liability. The company needed to evolve past your limited vision. My limited vision? Lena laughed softly. The vision that created the algorithm you've built your entire empire on? An algorithm that's now outdated? Sienna's helped me see where Stratos Edge needs to go next. You were holding us back. Lena noted his use of us, confirming her suspicions about their relationship. I have a board meeting in 5 minutes. Ethan said, his tone shifting to dismissive. Here's what's going to happen. You'll withdraw the injunctions, sign a quiet resignation letter, and take a reasonable settlement in exchange. I won't destroy whatever reputation you have left in the industry. And if I refuse, then I'll make sure the world knows about your mental health struggles, your obsessive jealousy, and how you tried to sabotage the company out of spite. Who do you think they'll believe? The successful CEO with a track record of growth, or the unstable wife who couldn't handle being replaced, professionally and personally? The threat hung in the air, revealing the depth of Ethan's willingness to destroy her. "I'll consider your generous offer," Lena said, her voice betraying nothing of her thoughts. "You have until 9 a.m. tomorrow," Ethan stated. After that, things get very ugly, very publicly. After he hung up, Lena sat motionless, processing the conversation. Ethan was showing his true nature now, the ruthlessness he'd always kept hidden beneath charm and the illusion of partnership. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Meeting compromised. Sienna wearing wire. Be careful. Friend at Stratos Edge." Lena stared at the cryptic message. Someone inside was looking out for her. But who? And could they be trusted? A second text arrived, this time from her cybersecurity contact. "Drive contains surveillance malware, plus fake evidence. Would have given full access to connected systems. Professional grade. Dangerous." So Sienna had indeed been sent to trap her. Lena felt a cold anger replace her earlier shock. The game was escalating faster than anticipated, and the players were proving more ruthless than she'd even calculated. She picked up her phone and dialed Eliza. "Ethan just called, with threats," she explained to her attorney. "And apparently, Sienna was wearing a wire when she came to see me earlier." "Did you say anything compromising?" Eliza asked immediately. "Nothing that can't be explained as a wronged spouse's confusion," Lena assured her. "But I'm concerned about his next move. He's threatened to publicly attack my mental health if I don't withdraw the injunctions by morning." "Classic abuser tactic," Eliza noted. "Discredit the victim so no one believes them." "But we expected this." "Yes," Lena agreed. "But I'm worried about accelerated timelines. A contact just messaged that Ethan's meeting with the board right now. What if he's pushing through the global tech sale before we can stop him?" "He can't sell without board approval, and Caleb Mitchell will stall any vote," Eliza reminded her. "More concerning is your safety. If he's desperate enough to try entrapment, what else might he do?" Lena thought of the daughter she carried, Ethan's daughter, though he seemed uninterested in that reality. "I need to move to the contingency location," she decided. "And we need to accelerate our timeline. Can you set up an emergency hearing with Judge Hamilton first thing tomorrow?" "Already working on it." "On it?" Eliza confirmed. "And Lena, don't be alone tonight. Ethan knows where your apartment is." After ending the call, Lena packed quickly. Essential documents, clothes, her backup laptops and drives. Everything else was replaceable. As she loaded her car in the underground garage, she felt a strange prickling sensation at the back of her neck. Looking up, she caught a glimpse of movement near the garage entrance. A dark sedan pulling away too quickly. Not parked. Not idling. Waiting. Ethan had her under surveillance. The realization wasn't surprising, but it confirmed the danger was immediate, not theoretical. She scanned the shadows. The ceiling lights flickered faintly, the kind of silence that pressed against your spine. She pulled out her phone to call Caleb when a wave of dizziness hit her unexpectedly. Gripping the car door for support, Lena took several deep breaths as the garage seemed to spin around her. Pregnancy symptoms, she told herself. Just stress. Not enough food today. But it lingered longer than usual. A sharp, pulsing weight behind her temples. Her hand automatically went to her abdomen, protective and panicked. But as she steadied herself and continued loading her car, a more troubling thought emerged. What if Ethan's threats extended beyond financial and reputational damage? What if he saw her pregnancy, his child, as nothing more than another obstacle to eliminate? He'd already tried to erase her from the company. Could he really? No, not even Ethan. But then again, what lines had he not crossed? The thought chilled her more deeply than any of his explicit threats. Lena's contingency location was a small house on Lake Geneva, owned through a series of LLCs that couldn't be traced back to her. She'd purchased it using proceeds from private investments. Investments Ethan knew nothing about. Investments that had performed remarkably well, thanks to the same predictive technologies she developed for Stratos Edge. By sunset, she had established her command center in the lake house's spare bedroom. Multiple laptops connected to secure servers. Encrypted communication channels established with her growing team of allies. Caleb Mitchell had confirmed Lena's fears. Ethan was indeed attempting to fast-track a sale to global tech, presenting it to the board as a necessary response to the intellectual property crisis Lena had created. He's claiming the company needs global tech's legal resources to fight your injunctions, Caleb explained via encrypted video call. He's offering a premium price. That's tempting some board members, he admitted, despite the obvious desperation of the move. Lena leaned back slightly, the glow of her screen reflecting off the glass behind her, isolated but not alone. Not anymore. How much time do we have? Lena asked. He's pushing for a vote tomorrow afternoon, Caleb replied. I've managed to delay it by insisting on proper due diligence, but several board members are scared by today's stock drop. They're vulnerable to his pressure. Then we need to move faster than planned, Lena decided. Can you ensure the full board will be present for tomorrow's vote, including remote members? Caleb nodded. Already done. But Lena, he's painting a very damaging picture of you. Claims of erratic behavior, vindictiveness, even allegations you tried to compromise company systems after your termination. All predictable, Lena noted calmly. What's important is that the full board hears the truth tomorrow, directly from me. After ending the call, Lena contacted her expanding team, the cybersecurity specialists examining the tracking software from Sienna's flash drive, the forensic accountants building the case of financial manipulation, and the PR firm quietly standing by to manage the inevitable media storm. As midnight approached, Lena finally allowed herself a brief rest, settling onto the lake house's deck with a cup of herbal tea. The moonlight glittered on the lake water, the peaceful scene a stark contrast to the corporate warfare being waged. Her phone rang, an unlisted number. Cautiously, she answered. Lena, it's Michael Jiao, from IT. Michael had been Lena's first hire at Stratos Edge, the brilliant systems architect who had implemented her algorithms. Michael? She responded carefully. This isn't a secure line. I know, and I can't talk long, he rushed. I sent you that warning text about Sienna. Ethan has the whole development team working around the clock trying to modify the core algorithm enough to claim it's different from your patent. Lena wasn't surprised. Will they succeed? No, Michael said firmly. It's your code, your architecture. They're just making cosmetic changes. But Lena, his voice dropped lower. He's also ordered a server wipe of all historical development files, trying to erase evidence of your contributions. When? Scheduled for 6 a.m. Before markets open. Lena felt a surge of cold anger. Ethan wasn't just trying to steal her company. He was attempting to erase her very existence from its history. Thank you, Michael. Be careful. One more thing, Michael added hastily. Check your personal email, special address, not the company one. I've sent you something important. After ending the call, Lena opened her most secure laptop and accessed an email account Ethan knew nothing about. Michael had sent a single file, a video recording of Ethan in the development lab late that evening, instructing the team on exactly how to modify the code and destroy evidence. I don't care if it's technically illegal. Ethan's voice rang clearly in the recording. By the time anyone could prove anything, the company will be sold and we'll all be wealthy enough to handle any consequences. Just get it done. Lena saved the file to multiple secure locations, one more piece of evidence for tomorrow's confrontation. As she finally prepared for bed, another wave of dizziness hit her, stronger this time, accompanied by a concerning cramp in her abdomen. Lena sat carefully on the edge of the bed, breathing through the discomfort. When it passed, she called her doctor's emergency line. Dr. Liu, it's Lena Brooks. I'm experiencing some dizziness and cramping. The doctor's voice was professionally calm but concerned. How severe is the cramping? Any bleeding? No bleeding, but the cramping is getting stronger, and I've had several episodes of dizziness today. Given your situation, I'd like you to come to the hospital for monitoring, Dr. Liu advised. Stress can significantly impact pregnancy, and from what I've seen in the news today, you're under extraordinary stress. Lena hesitated, considering the security implications of a hospital visit. Ethan would certainly have people watching medical facilities. I understand your concern about privacy, given the circumstances, Dr. Liu added, seeming to read her thoughts. I can arrange for you to come through a private entrance and use a pseudonym in our system. The cramping returned, sharper this time. Lena made her decision. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The hospital corridors were eerily quiet at 2 a.m. as a nurse escorted Lena to a private room in the maternity ward. True to her word, Dr. Liu had arranged discreet entry and registration under the name Sarah Chen. Your blood pressure is significantly elevated, Dr. Liu observed after completing her examination, and you're showing early signs of dehydration. Neither is immediately dangerous, but both need addressing to protect your pregnancy. Lena nodded as a nurse attached an IV to deliver fluids and medication to relax her uterine muscles. I need to be able to leave by 7 a.m., Lena explained. There's a situation I have to handle personally. Dr. Liu frowned. Medically, I'd prefer you rest here for at least 24 hours. This level of stress is dangerous for both you and your baby. I understand, but that's not an option right now. After tomorrow, I promise, I'll take better care. The doctor looked skeptical but nodded. I'll have the nurse check your vitals hourly. If the medication stops the cramping and your blood pressure stabilizes, I'll discharge you, with strict limitations. But Lena, your body is sending warning signals. Listen to them. After the doctor left, Lena settled back against the hospital pillows, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. The monitor beside her bed showed her daughter's heartbeat, strong and steady, despite everything. We're going to fix this, she whispered to her unborn child. And then we'll build something better, something honest. She closed her eyes, allowing herself a few hours of desperately needed rest before the final confrontation. Tomorrow would determine not just her future, but her daughter's legacy. The morning brought both relief and renewal. Lena's medical crisis had stabilized, the cramping had stopped, and her blood pressure had lowered to acceptable levels. Dr. Liu reluctantly signed the discharge papers at 6:30 a.m., with strict instructions for follow-up care. Whatever you're doing today, promise me you'll sit when possible. And stay hydrated, the doctor insisted, handing Lena a medical-grade water bottle. Your pregnancy should be stable if you're careful, but I'm still concerned about your stress levels. Lena nodded gratefully. After today, things will be different. As she left through the hospital's private exit, Lena checked her phone. Multiple messages confirmed that her team had executed their overnight assignments precisely. Michael had successfully protected key historical files from Ethan's ordered purge. The forensic accountants had completed their analysis of the financial manipulation. Judge Hamilton had scheduled the emergency hearing for 8 a.m. Everything was in place for the final act. At 7:45 a.m., Lena entered the courthouse through a side entrance, meeting Eliza in a private conference room. Her attorney looked surprised at the hospital bracelet still on Lena's wrist. You're coming straight from the hospital? Minor pregnancy complication, now stabilized, Lena explained briefly. Focus on the hearing. Is Judge Hamilton ready? Eliza nodded, still looking concerned. He's reviewed the emergency filing. Given the evidence and the time sensitivity with the potential company sale, he's inclined to grant the expanded injunctions. And Ethan's attorneys arrived 10 minutes ago, looking surprised and unprepared. They clearly didn't expect us to move this quickly. At precisely 8 a.m., Lena entered Judge Hamilton's chambers for the emergency hearing. Ethan's corporate attorneys rose in surprise at her appearance. They had clearly expected only her legal representation. Ms. Brooks, Judge Hamilton greeted her formally. I understand the urgency of your filing. These are serious allegations against Stratos Edge Capital and its current leadership. Lena nodded respectfully. Thank you for accommodating the emergency hearing, Your Honor. Ethan's lead attorney stepped forward. Your Honor, these claims are retaliatory actions from a disgruntled former executive. Ms. Brooks was terminated for cause yesterday and is now attempting to damage the company out of spite. Judge Hamilton raised an eyebrow. I've reviewed the patent filings, Mr. Benson. They predate the company's incorporation and appear properly registered to Ms. Tran, Ms. Brooks' maiden name. The licensing agreement also appears legitimate and is signed by Mr. Brooks himself. We contest the validity of those documents, the attorney insisted. And regardless, Ms. Brooks signed employment agreements assigning all intellectual property to the company. Lena remained calm as Eliza presented the judge with additional documentation. Your Honor, The employment agreement specifically excluded pre-existing intellectual property, as noted in Appendix B, which Mr. Brooks himself initialed. The judge reviewed the documents carefully, then looked up at Ethan's attorneys. These appear to be in order. Do you have evidence contesting the timeline of development or the exclusion clause? The attorneys exchanged uncomfortable glances. We'll need time to prepare a full response, Your Honor. Unfortunately, Judge Hamilton noted, time is precisely what's at issue here. I understand Stratos Edge has scheduled a board vote today regarding a potential sale to Global Tech, a sale that would transfer rights to the disputed intellectual property. Lena spoke carefully. Your Honor, we're not asking for a final ruling today, only an expanded temporary injunction preventing the sale or transfer of the disputed technology until ownership can be properly determined. Judge Hamilton considered the request, then turned to Ethan's attorneys. Your response? The lead attorney straightened. Your Honor, delaying this strategic transaction could cause irreparable harm to Stratos Edge. The stock has already dropped 18% due to Ms. Brooks's initial actions. A further delay could destroy shareholder value. And transferring potentially misappropriated intellectual property, the judge countered, could cause irreparable harm to Ms. Brooks. Having reviewed the evidence presented, I'm granting the expanded injunction. Stratos Edge Capital is prohibited from selling, transferring, or otherwise disposing of the intellectual property in question until a full hearing can be conducted. Relief washed through Lena, though her expression remained professionally neutral. Furthermore, Judge Hamilton continued, given the conflicting claims of ownership and the evidence presented, I'm appointing a special master to oversee Stratos Edge operations until this matter is resolved. Neither party may make major business decisions regarding the disputed technology without court approval. As Ethan's attorneys protested, Lena exchanged a quick glance with Eliza. This was an unexpected bonus. The special master would effectively neutralize Ethan's authority until the full hearing. Outside the courthouse, Lena checked her phone to find multiple urgent messages from Caleb. The board meeting had been moved up. Ethan was attempting to rush through the sale before any injunction could be enforced. We need to get to Stratos Edge immediately, Lena told Eliza, already moving toward the car. He's making his final move. The Stratos Edge Capital headquarters gleamed in the morning sun as Lena's car pulled up to the private executive entrance. Her hospital bracelet remained on her wrist, a deliberate choice, a visible reminder of what Ethan's actions had cost her. Caleb Mitchell was waiting by the private elevator, his expression grim. Ethan's presenting the sale as a done deal, Caleb explained as they entered the elevator. He claims the legal issues are minor and can be handled after closing. Several board members are wavering. Has he mentioned the expanded injunction? Lena asked. No, I don't think he knows yet. Lena nodded, checking her phone one last time before putting it away. Is Sienna there? Front and center, backing every word Ethan says. The elevator doors opened directly into the executive floor, where the boardroom stood behind glass walls. Through them, Lena could see Ethan at the head of the table, gesturing emphatically, while Sienna stood supportively behind him. Board members sat around the massive table, some looking convinced, others troubled. Lena took a steadying breath, one hand briefly touching her stomach in a private moment of resolve. Ready? Caleb asked quietly. Since the day I wrote the first line of code, she replied. As Lena and Caleb entered the boardroom, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Ethan faltered mid-sentence, his practiced confidence visibly shaken by her appearance. Sienna's eyes widened in alarm. Lena, Ethan recovered quickly, his voice shifting to concerned husband mode. This isn't appropriate. You're clearly not well. He gestured toward her hospital bracelet. Several board members looked. The board members shifted uncomfortably at the implication that they were pressuring an unwell, pregnant woman. I'm perfectly well, Ethan, Lena replied calmly, her voice carrying throughout the room. Though I did spend the night in the hospital due to pregnancy complications caused by stress. Stress directly resulting from your actions. Before Ethan could respond, Lena addressed the board directly. Members of the board, I apologize for this unorthodox entrance, but I've just come from an emergency court hearing where Judge Hamilton has granted an expanded injunction that specifically prohibits the sale you're currently discussing. She handed copies of the court order to Caleb, who distributed them around the table. "This is absurd," Ethan interjected, his composure cracking. "She's trying to destroy the company out of spite." Lena remained steady. "The court has also appointed a special master to oversee Stratos Edge operations until the ownership dispute is resolved. Any vote today to sell the company would be in direct violation of a federal court order." Board members exchanged concerned glances, legal counsel leaning in to whisper urgently to the chairman. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "This is a delaying tactic, nothing more. Her claims have no merit, and our attorneys will have this injunction lifted by tomorrow." "Perhaps," Lena acknowledged. "But Global Tech won't proceed with a transaction clouded by such significant legal uncertainty, especially when they learn about the financial irregularities." A tense silence fell over the room. "What financial irregularities?" asked Catherine Westbrook, the audit committee chair. Lena nodded to Caleb, who distributed another set of documents. "These reports show systematic manipulation of financial statements over the past 18 months, Lena explained. "Revenue has been artificially inflated, expenses hidden in subsidiary accounts, performance metrics manipulated to present a more favorable picture than reality." Ethan's face flushed with anger. "These are fabricated, more desperate attempts to damage the company she claims to care about." "The documents speak for themselves," Lena continued calmly. "And I've provided the forensic accounting methodology that identified the discrepancies. Your own audit team can verify everything." Catherine Westbrook was already reviewing the documents, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "These reference internal accounts I've never seen in our reporting." "Because they were deliberately kept from the audit committee," Lena confirmed. "Mr. Mitchell has access to the complete records as a major investor who conducted his own due diligence." Caleb nodded gravely. "I verified the discrepancies independently. They're real, and they're significant." Ethan's confident facade was crumbling visibly. "This is a coordinated attack on the company," he said, voice rising. "Lena was terminated for cause. She has no standing here." "About that termination," Lena responded, her voice cooling, "I think the board should understand exactly what happened." She placed a USB drive on the table. "This contains evidence that I created Stratos Edge's core technology before the company existed, properly patented it, and licensed it to Stratos Edge. It also contains documentation of my contributions to every major technological advancement this company has produced." Ethan stepped toward her, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "You need to leave, now." Lena stood her ground. "I'm not going anywhere, Ethan. Not this time." Suddenly, Sienna moved forward, placing a restraining hand on Ethan's arm. "Ethan, maybe we should take a break and consult with legal counsel, privately." The gesture was telling, Sienna attempting to prevent Ethan from making the situation worse. But Ethan shook off her hand roughly. "I don't need a break," he snapped. "What I need is for my unstable, vindictive ex-COO to be removed from this meeting." He gestured toward the security personnel standing by the door. "Escort Miss Brooks out of the building. Now." The security guards hesitated, looking uncertainly between Ethan and the board chairman. Lena addressed the chairman directly. "Mr. Abernathy, before you make that decision, you should know that federal investigators are currently reviewing evidence of securities fraud related to the financial misrepresentations I just outlined. As board chairman, you have specific legal responsibilities to shareholders." James Abernathy, who had been relatively quiet until now, straightened in his chair. "No one is removing anyone until we understand exactly what's happening here." He turned to Ethan. "These allegations are extremely serious, Ethan. We need to address them directly." Ethan's control was visibly slipping. "This is exactly what she wants, to create chaos and doubt. The company needs this sale to move forward. Global Tech has given us a deadline that conveniently prevents proper due diligence," Lena noted. "Why the rush, Ethan? What are you afraid Global Tech will find if they look too closely?" Before Ethan could respond, the boardroom door opened, and a woman in a dark suit entered, followed by two men. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," she announced, showing identification. "I'm Special Agent Keller." We have a warrant to seize specific financial records and electronic devices related to an ongoing investigation into securities fraud at Stratos Edge Capital. The boardroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Ethan stared at Lena with naked hatred. "You called the FBI?" he demanded. "I provided evidence of potential federal crimes to the appropriate authorities," Lena corrected calmly, "as any responsible corporate officer would do." Ethan's composure finally shattered completely. He lunged toward a nearby laptop, presumably containing incriminating information. "No one touches anything until our attorneys arrive," he shouted, attempting to access the computer. An FBI agent moved quickly to intervene. In the ensuing struggle, Ethan shoved the agent aside forcefully and grabbed the laptop, attempting to delete files. Lena stepped forward, trying to defuse the increasingly dangerous situation. "Ethan, stop. You're only making things worse." In his rage, Ethan swung around, the heavy laptop still in his hands, and whether intentional or accidental, it struck Lena squarely in the abdomen. She gasped, doubling over in pain, one hand instinctively protecting her stomach as she stumbled backward. The room froze in horror at the attack on a visibly pregnant woman. Even Sienna looked shocked. Caleb rushed to Lena's side, helping her to a chair as she winced in pain. The FBI agents immediately restrained Ethan, forcing him into handcuffs as he continued to struggle. "She's faking," Ethan shouted desperately. "She's always been manipulative. She's trying to destroy everything I built." Lena looked up at him from the chair, one hand still pressed protectively against her stomach. Her voice was quiet, but carried clearly in the stunned silence. "Everything you built, Ethan? That's always been your delusion." In that moment, with Ethan restrained and Lena injured but unbowed, the power dynamic shifted irrevocably. Board members who had been uncertain now looked at Ethan with open disgust. Sienna stepped forward, unexpectedly. "I have information relevant to your investigation," she told Agent Keller, "including documentation of financial manipulations I was instructed to perform." Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. "Sienna, what are you doing?" She didn't look at him. "Choosing the right side, finally." As medical personnel arrived to check on Lena, Agent Keller approached her carefully. "Ms. Brooks, do you need to return to the hospital?" Lena winced as the paramedic. The paramedic checked her vital signs, but Lena shook her head. "Not yet. There's something the board needs to see first." Despite protests from the medical staff, Lena insisted on addressing the board one final time. With Caleb's support, she stood carefully, facing the shocked directors. "What you've witnessed today is the culmination of a deliberate campaign to erase my contributions and steal what I built," she said, her voice steady despite the pain. "But it's also a chance to draw a line, not just between past and present, but between who we were and who we choose to become. But it's also an opportunity for Stratos Edge Capital to begin again, with integrity." She nodded to Caleb, who distributed final copies of her proposal to the board members. "This document outlines a path forward. The technology remains licensed to Stratos Edge under fair terms. I return as Chief Innovation Officer. A proper governance structure is reinstated, with transparent financial reporting and a corporate culture that values contribution over credit." Board members reviewed the document in silence. The weight of the moment was palpable, Ethan's voice still echoing in their ears, the chaos still fresh, and here stood Lena, bruised but unbroken, offering not revenge but reform. The stark contrast between Lena's composed leadership and Ethan's violent outburst was impossible to ignore. Chairman Abernathy was the first to speak. "I move that we immediately suspend Ethan Brooks from all corporate duties pending investigation, and that we empower a special committee to evaluate Ms. Brooks' proposal in detail." The vote was unanimous, even from board members who had been Ethan's strongest supporters just minutes earlier. As Ethan was led away by federal agents, still shouting accusations, Lena finally allowed the paramedics to help her into a waiting ambulance. The pain in her abdomen had intensified, raising concerns about her pregnancy. Sienna approached hesitantly as Lena was being settled on the stretcher. "I'm truly sorry," she said quietly, "for everything." Lena studied the woman, who had been both adversary and unwitting ally. "Actions have consequences, Sienna. Remember that. In whatever you do next." Her tone wasn't cruel, just final, measured, like someone who had reclaimed her power. As the ambulance doors closed, Lena finally allowed herself to acknowledge the toll the confrontation had taken. She closed her eyes, focusing on the paramedics' reassurance. "We're doing everything we can to protect your pregnancy." The battle was won, but the most important fight for her daughter's future was just beginning. 3 weeks after the dramatic board meeting, Lena sat in her doctor's office, her heart racing as Dr. Liu moved the ultrasound wand across her abdomen. "There she is," Dr. Liu said with a reassuring smile, pointing to the screen. "Strong heartbeat, good size for gestational age. Your daughter is quite resilient, just like her mother." Lena exhaled slowly, the tension she'd been carrying finally easing. After Ethan's attack, she'd spent 3 days in the hospital, on bed rest, terrified she might lose the pregnancy. Those had been darker days than even the betrayal itself. "So everything is truly okay?" Lena asked, still watching the fluttering heartbeat on the monitor. "The placental bruising has healed nicely, and your blood pressure is finally back in normal range," Dr. Liu confirmed. "I'd still recommend reduced stress and regular rest periods, but your pregnancy appears stable. You and your daughter weathered the storm." As Lena left the medical building, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, board meetings, and restructuring plans, all conducted from her hospital bed initially, then from home under doctor's orders. Ethan remained in federal custody, denied bail due to flight risk after investigators discovered offshore accounts and a planned exit strategy. The charges he faced were substantial: securities fraud, financial misrepresentation, assault, and attempted destruction of evidence. Sienna had indeed provided crucial testimony, receiving limited immunity in exchange for her cooperation. Lena's phone chimed with a message from Caleb. "Board approved the final restructuring plan, unanimous vote. Ready when you are." She smiled, texting back, "Meeting them at 2 p.m. The Stratos Edge Capital, soon to be renamed, headquarters looked different to Lena as her car pulled up to the main entrance. Rather than the executive access she had used before, she entered through the main atrium. Employees stopped to watch as she walked through. Her pregnancy now visibly showing at 16 weeks. Some nodded respectfully, others seemed uncertain how to react to her return. The boardroom where the dramatic confrontation had occurred had been redesigned, the imposing dark table replaced with a collaborative circular arrangement, the space brighter and more open, symbolic changes to match the substantive ones. Chairman Abernathy rose as Lena entered, extending his hand. "Welcome back, Lena. Or should I say, welcome to Walker Innovations." The board members applauded as Lena took her seat, not at the head of the table, but as part of the circle. The new arrangement reflected her vision for the company, collaborative leadership rather than hierarchical control. "Thank you all for your confidence," Lena began. "The past month has been challenging for everyone, but today marks a new beginning." She opened the presentation displayed on the room's screens, showing the rebranding and restructuring plan for what would officially become Walker Innovations the following week. "Our company was built on brilliant technology, but flawed values," Lena continued. "Walker Innovations will stand for both technological excellence and ethical leadership." For the next hour, Lena outlined her vision. Transparent financial reporting, collaborative innovation processes, a corporate culture that rewarded contribution rather than internal competition. Most revolutionary was her proposal for industry-leading parental support policies, including on-site childcare, extended leave for all parents, and flexible work arrangements. "Some will say these policies are expensive luxuries," Lena acknowledged. "I say they're essential investments in our most valuable asset, our people." The board's approval was emphatic. By the meeting's end, Lena had been officially appointed Chief Innovation Officer, a new role focused solely on technology development rather than day-to-day operations. The CEO position would remain vacant for now, managed by a committee until a suitable candidate emerged. As board members filed out, Caleb remained behind. "Quite a transformation," he observed, "from fired COO to company namesake in less than a month." Lena shook her head. "It was never about my name on the building, Caleb. It was about building something honest, something my daughter can be proud of." Caleb nodded thoughtfully. "Speaking of building, have you decided about the house?" Lena knew he meant the sprawling West Ridge estate she had once shared with Ethan. The court had frozen most assets pending resolution of the criminal and civil cases, but granted Lena exclusive use of the property, given her pregnancy and the circumstances of their separation. "I'm selling it," she said decisively. "Too many shadows there. I found a place closer to the office, with a garden and good schools nearby." As Lena gathered her materials, a notification appeared on her tablet. Ethan's attorney, requesting a meeting to discuss settlement terms. "He's finally realizing the strength of the case against him," Caleb noted, glimpsing the message. Lena closed the notification without responding. "There will be time for that. Today is about looking forward, not back." The following weeks brought rapid change, as Walker Innovations emerged from the ashes of Stratos Edge Capital. The rebranding became official 6 weeks after the boardroom confrontation, marked by a modest ceremony that emphasized substance over spectacle. Lena had insisted there be no glorification of any individual, including herself. The company's new values statement prominently featured collaborative innovation, transparent leadership as its core principles. Against Ethan, Lena remained focused entirely on rebuilding the company culture and stabilizing the technology pathway. The expanded engineering team, now free to acknowledge their actual contributions, flourished under the new recognition system. Michael Jiao, the IT director who had helped protect critical files during Ethan's attempted purge, had been promoted to Chief Technology Officer. Under his leadership, the development team was more productive and collaborative than ever before. By Lena's 6th month of pregnancy, Walker Innovations had recovered much of its stock value and secured several major new contracts. Industry analysts, who had initially predicted doom after the scandal, now pointed to the company as a model of effective crisis management and ethical restoration. Lena's doctor had finally cleared her for limited travel, allowing her to meet with key clients and partners. At one such meeting in New York, she found herself unexpectedly face-to-face with Sienna Hayes in the hotel lobby. Sienna looked different, the polished perfection replaced by a more authentic presentation. Her expression was wary as she recognized Lena. "I didn't know you were staying here," Sienna said carefully. "I can go elsewhere." Lena studied the woman who had been both instrument and victim in Ethan's manipulation. The federal prosecutor had confirmed that Sienna had provided valuable testimony, though she still faced professional consequences for her actions. "That's not necessary," Lena replied. "Are you working in New York now?" Sienna nodded. "A small consulting firm, entry-level position, but it's a fresh start." An awkward silence stretched between them before Sienna spoke again. "I want you to know, I'm genuinely sorry," she said, her voice lower. "Not just for the professional betrayal, but for the personal one. I believed what he told me about you, that you were cold, calculating, holding him back. I never questioned why he might say those things." Lena considered her response carefully. "We all made choices, Sienna. Yours were wrong, but so were some of mine. I chose to let Ethan take credit rather than insisting on recognition. I chose partnership over standing up for myself. We learn, and we move forward." Sienna looked surprised by the lack of continued anger. "How is your pregnancy progressing?" "Well, now," Lena replied, one hand resting briefly on her rounded abdomen. "She's quite active, especially during board meetings." A ghost of a smile crossed Sienna's face. "She'll be a force to be reckoned with." "I imagine that's the plan," Lena confirmed. As they parted, Lena felt an unexpected sense of closure, one more chapter of the painful past completed. At 7 months pregnant, Lena stood on the podium at the New York Stock Exchange, the ceremonial bell in front of her. Walker Innovations was being relisted after completing its full restructuring and rebranding, a symbol of corporate resurrection that had captured the business world's attention. Beside her stood Caleb Mitchell and the newly appointed CEO, Janet Kimura, formerly of Microsoft, selected for both her technical brilliance and commitment to ethical leadership. With 10 seconds until the opening bell, we're joined by Lena Brooks, founder and chief innovation officer of Walker Innovations, the NYSE official announced. Walker Innovations rose from corporate scandal to become a model of transparent leadership and technological innovation. As Lena rang the bell, cameras flashed, and the trading floor erupted in applause. The company's stock opened 15% above its projected price, a resounding vote of market confidence in the new leadership and direction. Later that evening, Lena sat in her hotel suite, watching financial news coverage of the day's events. A special report caught her attention: the fall of Ethan Brooks, inside the Apex scandal. The screen showed Ethan in prison overalls, being led into a courtroom for his ongoing trial. He looked diminished, his charismatic confidence replaced by bitter anger that aged his features. Lena felt no satisfaction at the image, only a complex mixture of emotions: regret for what might have been, relief that justice was proceeding, and determination to create something better from the wreckage of their partnership. She turned off the television and instead opened the nursery design plans for her new home. This, not Ethan's fate, was her focus now: creating a safe, loving environment for her daughter's arrival. At exactly 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Lena's water broke, 2 weeks earlier than her due date. Her carefully arranged birthing plan activated smoothly. Her driver appeared within minutes. Her doctor was notified. The hospital's private entrance was ready when she arrived. What Lena hadn't planned was the welcoming committee that formed in the hospital waiting room over the next few hours. Caleb arrived first, followed by Janet Kimura and Michael Jiao. Board members appeared with flowers and well wishes. Even Catherine Westbrook, once Ethan's strongest supporter on the board, came to offer her support. After 8 hours of labor, Lena Brooks gave birth to Eliza Chen Brooks, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with a strong cry and her mother's determined expression. When the nurse asked if she wanted visitors, Lena surprised herself by saying yes. She had expected to want privacy, but something about the day called for community, for witnessing this new beginning together. Caleb entered first, his usually stoic expression softening at the sight of Lena holding her daughter. "She's perfect," he said simply. "She is," Lena agreed, then added with a smile, and already showing signs of good judgment, she waited to arrive until after the West Corp contract was signed. One by one, the small group of visitors who had become Lena's unexpected support system came to welcome Eliza. They represented something Lena hadn't anticipated in all her meticulous planning: a corporate family, formed through crisis and redemption. Janet Kimura was the last to visit, staying only briefly, but making a characteristically straight-to-business observation. "The market responded positively to the birth announcement," she reported. "Stocks up another 3%. Apparently investors like the symbolism of new beginnings." Lena laughed, her first genuine, unreserved laugh in many months. "Always the CEO," she teased. Janet's expression softened. "Take all the time you need, Lena. The company is stable. Your work made that possible." After everyone left, Lena cradled Eliza close, watching her daughter's peaceful sleep. The past year had been a journey she never could have predicted. From betrayal to rebirth, from loss to creation. Ethan's trial would conclude in the coming months. The legal ownership of the patents and intellectual property would be formally resolved. The company would continue evolving beyond its troubled origins. But in this quiet moment, with her daughter, Lena found herself focused entirely on the future, not the past. 3 months later, Lena adjusted Eliza's carrier beside her chair in the Walker Innovations boardroom. The baby gurgled contentedly, wide eyes taking in the colorful, abstract paintings that had replaced the stern portraits of past corporate leaders. The company's first post-restructuring quarterly earnings report had exceeded all projections. The implementation of Lena's parental support programs had attracted top talent from competitors. And most significantly, the corporate culture had transformed. Collaborative innovation had replaced credit-seeking competition. The numbers spoke for. "The numbers speak for themselves," Janet Kimura concluded her presentation to the board. "But perhaps more telling are the qualitative measures. Employee satisfaction is up 47%, voluntary turnover is down 62%, and innovation submissions have increased by 84%. Lena listened with quiet satisfaction, occasionally glancing at Eliza, who had become the unofficial mascot of board meetings. The on-site child care center, Eliza's first, had opened the previous week. It was already at capacity, with a waiting list forming. As the meeting concluded, Chairman Abernathy raised one final agenda item: the settlement offer from Ethan Brooks' attorneys, he noted. "They're proposing to relinquish all claims to company ownership in exchange for dropping certain civil charges." Lena had expected this. With Ethan's criminal conviction now secured, 8 years for securities fraud and related charges, he was maneuvering to salvage what he could financially. The legal team recommends acceptance, Janet added. It provides clean closure without prolonged litigation. Lena considered the proposal, looking down at Eliza, who had fallen asleep during the financial projections. Accept it, she decided. The company needs to focus on building, not fighting past battles. As board members gathered their materials and filed out, Lena remained seated, waiting until the room cleared before carefully lifting Eliza's carrier. The baby stirred, but didn't wake, one tiny hand escaping the blanket. Michael Jiao paused at the door. Coming to the development team's presentation this afternoon, they've made a breakthrough on the algorithm expansion. Wouldn't miss it, Lena assured him. Eliza particularly enjoys the code visualizations. I think we have a future engineer. Michael smiled at the sleeping infant. Like mother, like daughter. As Lena walked through the headquarters that now bore her name, employees no longer stared uncertainly. Instead, they smiled, some stopping to admire Eliza or ask about the childcare center. In her office, designed with a comfortable seating area for infant care alongside technical work, Lena settled Eliza into the custom-designed bassinet before turning to her computer. A notification blinked on the screen. Ethan Brooks' settlement acceptance had been formally filed with the court. With that final legal tie severed, Lena felt an unexpected sense of completion. Ethan would serve his sentence and eventually be released, but their professional and personal connections were now conclusively ended. She turned to the window, looking out over the Chicago skyline, with Eliza sleeping peacefully beside her desk. The view reminded her of standing in that first small office years ago, explaining her algorithm to an excited Ethan, both of them dreaming of building something significant. Only now, she finally had. They had indeed built something significant. Just not what either of them had originally envisioned. Lena had lost a husband and a partner, but gained a daughter, and a company truly reflective of her values. Later that afternoon, as Lena presented the quarterly innovation roadmap to the executive team, with Eliza contentedly watching from her carrier, a board member leaned over to Caleb. Remarkable transformation, he observed quietly, from near collapse to industry leader in less than a year. Caleb glanced at Lena, composed, brilliant, and now unabashedly bringing her whole self to leadership. Then, at the engaged, collaborative team around the table, the most valuable lesson from all of this, Caleb replied, is one Ethan Brooks learned too late. Never underestimate what a woman will do to protect what's hers. On the presentation screen, Lena unveiled the company's expanded mission statement, prominently featuring their new guiding principle. Truth builds stronger foundations than deception ever could. Eliza gurgled in apparent approval, tiny hands reaching toward the future her mother was creating, one built on authenticity, resilience, and the power of beginning again. Dear friend, life doesn't always unfold the way we imagine. It breaks us, humbles us, and, if we choose, rebuilds us into something stronger. Lena's story is a vivid reminder of what the Stoics knew well, that while we cannot control what others do to us, we can control how we rise after the fall. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Lena turned betrayal into clarity, pain into purpose, and loss into a foundation for something far more enduring than ego. Integrity. She didn't just rebuild a company, she reclaimed her identity. That's the power of stillness, of resolve, and of staying true when the world tries to twist your truth. You may not choose your trials, but you always choose your response. And in that choice lies your freedom. If this story moved you, we'd love to have you with us. Please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs it, and subscribing for more stories that speak to the strength within you.